welcome to the fourth edition of our Sustainability Champion Series, where we recognize states that have taken concrete steps towards achieving sustainable development goals. The Champion Series is part of our larger platform on Sustainability 100 Plus by Network 18 and AB InBev, which aims to bring together sustainability doers and influencers from across industries, government, NGOs, startups, and other stakeholders. Today, we will highlight Karnataka's goal in sustainable development and circular packaging. Karnataka, of course, has implemented robust waste management strategies. The state government, NGOs, corporates, and civil society are making a huge difference here. So then, to take forward this discussion, we have an ace panel of speakers, some of the biggest voices at the intersection of India, Inc. and policy. Let me quickly introduce them. We have Mr. Mohandas Pai, who needs no introduction. He is a Padma Shri awardee, and he's also the chairman of Manipal Global Education. Dr. Samir Joshi, who is the honorary treasurer of the Governing Council, Indian Plastics Institute, and senior member, Society of Plastic Engineers, USA. We have Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General of TERI, or the Energy and Resources Institute. Welcome, Dr. Dhawan. We also have Mr. Andrew Almack, CEO of Plastics for Change, Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao, Environmental Support Group and Trustee. We also have Mr. R.S. Sodhi, the MD of Amul, Mr. Ashish Bhandari, who's the MD and CEO of Thomax Group, and Mr. Vineet Sharma, who is the VP Marketing and New Business Development of India for AB InBev, in fact, Network 18's partners, as we conduct these dialogues on sustainability. Thank you all very much for joining us on such an important topic. With ESG gaining ground globally in India, it's not just a topic on the periphery, but something that's increasingly going mainstream now for some of India's biggest companies, listed companies in India and around the world as well. So, Mr. Pai, let me begin with you. If you can take us through how you view India's progress in terms of achieving these sustainable development goals. Are we more serious about it? Have we taken concrete steps in this direction?
Well, Chandra, you'll be happy to know that the Niti Aayog publishes an annual report on India's sustainable development goals. And I think India has done fairly well. India will probably meet much of the target already. And you must remember that India is a very, very complex, diverse, extremely large country with 1.38 billion people. So they've been publishing this report. They've been having a ranking exercise. They've been ranking states. And the latest report makes good reading. And they say that many, many states are doing well. Some states are laggards. And some states have extremely deep problems. And it will take them a lot of time. They neither have the money, nor the capacity, nor their knowledge to progress at a very fast pace. And much of the southern states will do extremely well because the education outcome is higher, they're fairly well developed, and their challenges are very different. The population is not growing, they're getting older, etc. So if you look across India, it's a mosaic, but the whole of India is going forward. And that's because the political will is extremely, extremely good. Because if you look at all the goals that has been laid down by the UN, you'll find out that a large number of them, there is progress, there are policies put into place, etc. And the last point I want to make is that the corporate sector is playing a great role. You'll be shocked to see that, a large number of them are publishing the ESG report with a lot of enthusiasm and action. And they are now coming close to becoming global leaders. For example, Infosys has reduced his energy consumption by 50%, his water use by about 45–50%. And in all his waste, etc., has been considerably reduced. They reimagined the entire process. Now they are the world champion. The carbon footprint has removed drastically per person. So I think you're seeing many of them. But the thing is, it's a very large country, very diverse in the corporate sector, and the states have very deep challenges. Many of them will do well. Some of them will be laggards. But overall, I think the movement is very, very strong forward.
Right. It's interesting you mentioned ESG because I heard about a startup recently that had to sort of conform to ESG guidelines or sustainability guidelines before they could get an investment from a sovereign fund. So it's become important. It's not just a nice to have, but it's a must have category now. Dr. Dhawan, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, let me bring you in. What kind of policy support is needed here to ensure that we continue to build and progress and grow without harming the environment? Because as Mr. Pai said, it's very welcome that the Niti Aayog, which is the government's think tank, publishes an annual report on where we are, where we should be. But beyond that, what do we need on the ground?
See, what is happening is that right now, if we look at that, people can follow either. It is that there are no policies which focus on low carbon or zero carbon development pathways. The other is that in a way, you don't know how much of emissions you are creating. The industries, if they are conscious, they will do it, but otherwise there is no online monitoring system to monitor air and water discharges at regular basis. The adopting circular economic principles and resource efficiency process to conserve resources and closing the material use loop, moving towards zero waste to landfills, is something which needs to be ingrained. People at the industries, they are to be told time and again that cleaner is not expensive. And all these principles, if they engrave in their DNA, they can follow it very easily. And from the government side, some pressure that you need to do these things. So that's what I personally feel should be there. Policies let me take example from agriculture, and Mr. Pai mentioned about water. There is no incentive for farmer to go for technologies which use less of water. So therefore, that kind of policy changes are needed. So give them incentive so that they can follow low water usage technologies. So that kind of policy change is required.
Okay, let me go across to Ashish Bhandari from Thermax at this stage. Ashish, what is Thermax's vision towards sustainability?
For Thermax, the very purpose of the company is conserving resources to preserving our future. And that is the ethos, that's the heart of the company. And it has been for several years. So for this company, sustainability, to be taking care of the environment, has always been central to what the purpose of the company itself is. The question, though, is not as simple, though, because for a country like India, where energy availability is also an issue, we cannot go to someone who does not have electricity to say that you can't have electricity, to someone who goes on a scooter today that you can't have a four-wheeler tomorrow. For countries like India, you have to be able to balance energy availability with energy sustainability. And it is on this particular bridge that Thermax and companies such as Thermax have a big, big role to play. Because for India to go to the future, we have to be able to marry this energy availability with energy sustainability. Thermax achieves to walk this bridge, helps companies that it works with walk that bridge, and takes that to heart in everything that we do as part of the company itself.
Dr. Joshi, let me bring you in. Plastics for a long time were seen as indispensable. But if you look at the effort from companies, governments, various state governments, they have taken steps to sort of cut down plastic, ban use of plastic. More companies are moving to biodegradable resources. Even if you look at a lot of these e-commerce, food delivery companies, and other companies, they've increasingly come under scrutiny for the amount of packaging that they use. So is all this helping? What else can be done?
Plastics today is the most used as well as the abused material. In the plastic industry, we have a saying, plastics do not litter, people do. I belong to the plastic industry, but I'm not at all here to promote the plastics, but I'm here to promote the correct use of plastics. And Andrew and such very many entrepreneurs are doing excellent work in plastics. There is an Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is getting all stakeholders together, and they have laid out a plan, which also India and the various organizations, be it NGOs, be it government, be it the producers, all are following. Elimination of problematic or unnecessary plastic packaging through redesign, innovation, that is important. reuse models applied. One startup in Mumbai, young chap, moving his tempo around for refilling. This is a unique model. All plastics to be 100% reusable and recyclable or compostable. Like our Prime Minister has committed that by 2022 we will phase out the single-use plastics. All packaging to be reused and recycled and composted in practice. That is important. The use of plastics developed from the consumption of finite resources, that is, developing alternative sources for plastics, and ensuring that all plastic packaging is free of hazardous chemicals and the health, safety, and the rights of the people resolved. Companies are following these steps, and we are seeing wonderful examples by startups and also supported by many companies in this sphere. So the movement has begun, and
Right.
it will continue and gather steam.
Right, movement has begun, heartening to note. But is that enough? Andrew, give us your perspective because you work in this area in terms of the scale of plastic waste. Are all these plastic bans? What kind of enforcement really happens there? Because, while we are talking about digital and how everything is going from physical to digital, I think the downside is that, the scale of packaging has significantly gone up. So are companies also more conscious now? What's your sense?
Yeah, to your first point, the scale of the plastic consumption has been growing at close to double digits in the last decade. So that combined with the urbanization in India, we're seeing a lot of municipalities struggling to keep up with the total consumption growth of plastic packaging, and there is a lot of course, burning and dumping that happens. I also want to say that India does have a really high recycling rate compared to the global benchmark, and that is because of the robust informal waste economy in India. There's kabadiwalas, there's scrap shop network across the country, which is the backbone. The informal sector is really the backbone of the recycling system that's getting a lot of the material into the circular economy. The downside is that the vast majority of the plastic is being recycled using fairly rudimentary techniques, and it's downcycled into lower quality applications. There's very, very few brands in India that are using recycled plastic at scale. I don't think any of them are really cracking double-digit consumption, even maybe in PET. But there's a lot of work to help match that demand from the brand side with ensuring the right quality and also ensuring the compliance in the supply chain and enabling more mass adoption of recycled plastic.
Bhargavi Rao, let me get your perspective here on Karnataka in particular, because that's the theme. How is Karnataka progressing when it comes to sustainable development goals? Because as Mr. Pai said, this also has a close correlation with the education levels, with the kind of focus the government has. And he said the southern states are poised to do better. But what is your sense?
Thank you. Yeah, so according to the latest Niti Aayog report that Mr. Pai referred to, Karnataka is actually moved to the third position with respect to a whole lot of indicators after Tamil Nadu and Kerala. But we are still a long way to go with specific goals, for example, clean water and sanitation, then climate change and the life on land indicators. These are areas where a lot more work needs to be done. And it is probably because of the role of civil society here in Karnataka has helped a lot in achieving these indicators to a large extent, even in the context of waste. It's a bunch of non-profit organizations which have moved courts just to make sure governance is fixed. There is decentralization, there is implementation of the 73rd and the 74th Amendment. And today, cities like Bangalore are seeing some segregation of waste. And again, in the context of water, we've had to move courts just to get those things that are in law to be implemented. The courts are not coming out with anything new. They're only saying go back to your law books and follow the law, implement the law. So it's the same thing with biodiversity as well. So yes, we have done well, but still a long way to go with respect to some of these indicators concerning the environment.
Right. At this point, let me also welcome Mr. R.S. Sodhi of Amul. Mr. Sodhi, welcome to the panel and the discussion. Amul, of course, is one of the most admired brands in India. But when it comes to sustainability, packaging, how are you moving towards this?
Let me tell first start. Sustainability is a word which is nowadays used in any talk, any discussion, any conferences, and everybody using sustainability word as per their interpretation. Okay, I think sustainability is not one thing which we are presently thinking. I think sustainability has got three pillars. It is a societal, it is basically the environment, and also the economy. I'll give you the example through any agri value chain or any milk value chain, what we mean by sustainability. You see, in any agri value chain, there are 5 major stakeholders. Okay, first is the producer or the farmers who is producing the food. And why he is doing it? He is doing it for his livelihood. So for him, sustainability is for his livelihood, feeding his family. Then let us come to the entrepreneur or any company who is in the agri value chain. For them, sustainability is running their business profitably, earning profit so they can viable, they can run their business for the decades by keeping all of the 4 stakeholders happy. Then there are countries. For countries, sustainability is providing nutrition and millions and billions of the people, food security, and providing affordable, sustainable food, which is going to be sustainable for the country. Then comes the so-called majorly people think sustainable, that is the environmentalist, where environment sustainability, you are producing or doing or producing food which is sustainable for the future generation. So your environment is not affected. Where you talk about carbon footprint, you talk about methane emission, you talk about. And let me tell you, the most important is in this stakeholder, 5th is customer or the consumer who is buying it, who is consuming it. What he is looking for food is sustainable means a food which is nutritious, which is available, and which is affordable. So you have to make a society, all these sustainability definition, keeping in mind these 5 stakeholders, and then to ensure that if these 5 stakeholders are sustainable, you are going to be sustainable. Otherwise, you emphasize only one pillar, it is not going to be. Now, do I have time to speak further?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Sodhi, go ahead.
Okay, I'll very briefly give you the example of agri or dairy value chain, how sustainability is there and what measures are being taken. You take example of milk. So when you talk about societal aspects of the sustainability, so there are 2 things. One is 100 million farmers are producing milk, they are selling it, and they are earning their livelihood out of it. And also, example from the country point of view, 1 glass of milk is giving about 70% of calcium, 40% of phosphorus, and 24% of vitamin, and 15% of daily protein requirement. Now you come to the economical aspects of this, that by this selling food, milk, each family is earning 6 to 10,000 rupees every month. So they are able to not only feed their own kids, but also they are able to have their livelihood on day-to-day basis. And this values around, in case of milk, around $110 billion. So you have to see, when you are talking about what is the value and how many people are dependent on that. Now coming to the main aspect where I think you people are interested, environment aspects as far as the agri milk. You see, in India, we are the largest producer of milk and foods, and rice and wheat is number 2. And whatever we are producing, grains are fed to the human population as a nutrition. Whatever is roughage is fed to the animals for them, which is a diet. And this roughage is converted into milk and then again coming to the as a nutrition for the human being. So whole cycle is complete by producing plants or grains, etc. And this whole cycle. And then comes to the one very topic we generally talk is cow dung. So when you eat, cow dung is produced 15, 20, 25 kg depending on the cow. And out of the dung, what are you doing? And from the thousands of years, cow dung is used as a biofertilizer. Cow dung is also used as a for your kitchen, for cooking purpose when you are. And cow dung is also used nowadays for biogas and the biofertilizer. So this is the whole cycle. And now coming to your question of the packaging, my dear, let me tell you, packaging, any solution you plug, it has to meet all these 5 standards. Then only it is affordable, it is available, and it is viable, and it is sustainable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Sodhi, I think Bhargavi wanted to come in. Bhargavi?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add a point that what is really worrying is a whole lot of industries have been removed from the purview of environmental clearances. And that is deeply troubling. For example, the simple thing that utility scale solar parks have been removed from the purview of environmental clearances, and such parks are displacing livelihoods. So years from now, we will not be able to say proudly that we've reached the sustainable development goals, because it is causing a lot of nutritional insecurity at the household level. It is playing out on gender, especially women who are bearing the brunt of it, children who are bearing the brunt of it. I just wanted to add to that point and gave that example. Thank you.
Dr. Dhawan, did you also want to come in at this point?
The only point, most of the time, what we do is we see things as one standalone. And as rightly pointed out, we have to see things in totality. What's going to be the impact of a particular industry? Like, for example, we are talking of solar in a big way. I'm not against it. Yes, renewables have to come. But then where the research has to go, what are going to be the problems 20 years from now? When the photovoltaics would have lived their life, even today, like point rightly brought out, that they if are putting lots of solar panels and displacing forest for the sake of it, and then tomorrow you are going to have problems related to how do you discard those photovoltaics. So when you look at sustainability, you have to look into every aspect of it. What is going to be the impact on rural populations, those who are there, like even replacing coal? Then also we are looking at what is going to have impact on the communities who are dependent on coal mines and so on. And where is the plan for them? So that is very important if you are talking of sustainability.
How do you help your customers achieve better productivity through sustainable solutions? Ashish, if you can take this.
Let me start by sharing an example. Last year, we had a customer who is in the paper recycle business out of Gujarat. And as part of the paper recycling business, they receive a lot of reused paper from a variety of different sources. Much of this paper is ready to use and is okay, but about 10 to 20% of this paper is wet. It has plastic in it. It has a lot of materials that are called within the technical definition as non-recoverable, which means typically these are taken away and then maybe burnt on in waste bins or on the roadside or in very different ways that are harmful to the environment. So the customer worked with Thermax to develop a solution by which we can take all of these, what is called as non-recoverable waste, and find ways to convert this into power and heat. And this particular heat was then converted to steam and used in the plant itself, and the power itself was also used in the plant. So this by alone is a very good example both of how Thermax can help with circularity, but also on how Thermax works with its customers on various parts that are ultimately making our planet a better place. So, in terms of new products that we come up with, such as the example that I gave you, but also helping cement plants, steel plants do waste heat recovery, variety of different technologies that we have, all of which are completely focused towards improving sustainability. And I'll share some more examples on some of these kinds of new products that we are developing. Next, I would talk about where Thermax puts its own money, which is we have a build, own, operate business, which does close to 30 plants in India, where we source biomass for our customers. We run these biomass in plants that we develop and build and operate. And the customer just pays for energy that is used in these plants. So these are a whole host of food, pharma, textiles, rubber, variety of different customers that historically would have burnt coal. Today we come and tell them, look, instead of coal, you have biomass as a very viable solution. The challenge with biomass is how do I manage the supply chain of biomass? How do you deal with the agro residue industry, which is not very stable from an industry perspective? Thermax comes in and says, we will manage all of that for the customer. The customer just needs to pay for steam or power on a per usage basis. So we take an application which was very dirty and we provide a solution which is completely green. In other solutions, we bring solar storage in, we provide zero liquid discharge water solutions, effluent treatment plants, all on a per use basis, by which we take the hassle away from the customer entirely. We manage the entire plant from a Thermax point of view. The next example would be our own investment in technology, which is starting to look at the future. So as you may know, Thermax was a pioneer in India in terms of fuel cell technology. And we've been working on fuel cell technology for nearly a decade now. And we have one released product, which is actually helping the Navy on a particular application. But we have also partnered with Reliance in the past to see if you can take cell phone towers and develop fuel cell technology to take gensets and replace those gensets with fuel cells. This is still an emerging space. We have got a couple of years before we can come up with a completely replaceable product. But we've got other technologies in the mix around water as an example, where we are coming up with innovative water solutions, where today's RO solutions waste 80% of the water, take in 20% of the water. Our water solution on what is called as capacitive deionization will send out only 20% and 80% of the water will be taken in. So we are making water more sustainable. One of the most exciting innovations that we have, which I would love to talk to you, and a couple of examples on innovation, is a bus solution for buses that we have developed. And this is being tested in Europe right now on a Mercedes-Benz bus, where we take the exhaust of the bus. So you can imagine exhaust is where a lot of emissions happen, but exhaust is where there is also heat being emitted out of the bus. So we take that heat which is being emitted out of the bus to take the energy out of that heat and drive the cooling in the bus. Yeah, so this is a very unique technology which is called as absorption heat cooling, where you use heat to drive cooling. So we take a bus which had high emissions, low efficiency, and by driving the heat of the bus to drive efficiency and emissions, we make the bus effectively a zero emissions bus and improve the efficiency, which means you use less fuel, less diesel, less petrol. So some examples of the way Thermax is bringing in innovation to ultimately help with sustainability.
Yeah, Mr. Pai, I'll just come to you. No, one second, Mr. Pai. Let me just bring in Vineet as well. We need another corporate perspective. Mrs. Sodhi gave the Amul perspective on how you have to look at sustainability from multiple dimensions. Different people have different definitions, but Amul looks at it from a wholesome perspective, from a supply chain to a customer, to what the end user really wants. But Vineet, give us your perspective here. How are you kind of achieving circularity in packaging? And after this, I will come to Mr. Pai. Yes, Vineet.
Sure, thanks. Circular packaging solutions incorporate the principle of reusing more than once instead of discarding, and this actually integrates seamlessly with our sustainability efforts. At AB InBev, we have a philosophy of rethink, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And for us, the responsibility of a product goes beyond the last sip that the consumer has. And as part of our sustainability goal by 2025, we aim to ensure 100% of our product is in returnable packaging or made from majority of recycled content. In fact, we are continuously exploring innovative solutions to maximize the utilization of waste and increase recycled content in our packaging solutions in particular. Just for the fact at present, almost 98% of our glass bottles are returnable, and cans are made from almost 76% of recycled content. And we have achieved some successful pilots as well, in which we are converting barley straw into packaging material and utilize spent grain, which is made as part of our manufacturing process, into upcycled products as well. Not only that, we are continuing to advocate for returnable solutions, including recovering and reusing of bottles as much as possible.
Right. Thanks for that perspective, Vineet. Mr. Pai, you wanted to weigh in. Please go ahead.
Chandra, when you talk about sustainability, there's a price to pay. And the price has to be paid. There is going to be a negative impact on some people, negative impact somewhere. You cannot live without any negative impact. Let me give you an example, all right? We're all fond of trees. We want to hug trees. We believe so many things about trees. But if you have a traffic situation where 300, 400 trees have to be moved, and the net result is the improvement in the quality of life, lesser carbon discharge, we should go for it. So I think society has to come together to find out the net impact. For example, we have to reduce the use of coal because coal is a very big pollutant. In the COVID in Delhi, one of the things that came out was people's lung capacity have been impaired. India burns 1 billion tons of coal. 1 billion tons of coal, and all that coal with 35% ash that is being released in the atmosphere, and there's a major result is the pollution in Delhi. Now you need solar. Now we can all argue that people are getting displaced, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it is true. But what is the other option? There is no other option, right? What we need to do is to make sure that how do we recycle the panels and everything at the end of life? That is where we have to put our money and we have to invest. Now, are we going to displace some people? Yes, we are going to displace some people. There is no simplistic life. Everybody wants a high quality of life. Everybody wants this. Nobody is going to come down. You ask Mr. Sundi, given a chance, all the farmers' children, if they get a job in IT, will leave farming and go away. They don't want to milk cows. They don't want to stay there. Now, we all stay in urban areas and say, oh, the rural area should be very good. We must do this. Yes. But, it's a miserable life for many of them because the earning is not there. So we have to be very careful about the setup and see overall, how do we minimize the cost? Now, can we do away with plastic? No. Can we minimize the use of plastic? Yes. Can we recycle plastic? Yes. What do we do for that? Can we have an alternate to plastic? Yes. We have to do all that together as part of a circular economy so that this circular economy recycles resources and the earth's resources are not used. To me, the circular economy concept is the most important thing that we have to focus, and a lot more investment has to go.
Ashish, what initiatives have you or Thermax taken to ensure a circular economy?
Okay, I'll start first with the culture of the company itself. Yeah, Thermax has a safety oath, which has been oath which we take to commit to health and safety of our people, and we've been doing that for a very, very long time. Earlier last year, we changed that oath to make it a health, safety, and environment oath, which means we brought environment into the discussion as well, and we modified that oath by talking about, I will do my share to preserve the planet's resources, the planet's future by conserving resources and minimizing carbon footprint through reduce, reuse, and recycle. So by putting the words of reduce, reuse, and recycle in almost everything that we do, and it's an oath that we take on practically every person in Thermax probably takes it at least once a week. Many take it even more often than that. We are constantly making sure that in every resource that we use, the idea of reduce, reuse, and recycle is very high in our own commitment to our society at large. The second thing I would share, so the culture bit is reinforced right at the top and on a continuous basis. In many of our sites where we are doing projects and things like that, our team takes a lot of pride and pleasure in making sure that if we are modifying a site in any particular way, if there's a chance that we have to cut trees, all of these trees are taken from the roots in a way that they are planted in a different place at the same site so that there is no harm or loss of life to a tree because of work that we do. So we take utmost attention in these cases. Another good example I will talk about is the Thermax Care. So this is a voluntary organization within Thermax where we as individuals, not just as part of the company, but as individuals of the company, talk about helping in any which way that we can. And we have specifically for environment, we do Thermax Cares for the environment. So this is, as I said, a voluntary organization where we help in minimizing trash, recycling, electronics, variety of different things that are helping us from a sustainability and an environment point of view. One of the sessions we had last month was on composting, which is can you as individuals bring composting into your house by and take some of the wet waste that we have, which otherwise gets lost, and how do you convert that into a circular economy by bringing it back and doing composting at your home level, at your building level, at your society level. So as part of this, many people, including me, we are all starting to say, okay, how do we compost? So one more small example, which is more at an individual level of things that Thermax is doing. On top of this, I've already shared with you a lot of activities that we are doing at our company and our product level to drive sustainability for the future.
That's an important point, and so many trade-offs to consider when you make these decisions as well. Dr. Joshi, and then Ms. Bhargavi can come. Dr. Joshi, you wanted to say something?
I would like to tell a small anecdote. Mr. Sodhi and me happened to be at one seminar, and he said there, plastic wala makes meets doodh wala. Packaging of plastics and milk go hand in hand, and as all of the speakers agree, design for recycling, design for transportation, design for using recycled content. This is more important. I'll tell you an example of a brand whose 85% of packaging is unprinted, which means it can be recycled without compromising quality. And the remaining 15%, the inks are used and adhesives are used which are non-toxic. So this is a step towards recyclability, and all the stakeholders have to work for this. The multi-layered packages of different materials, they are being used by the same layer packaging, plastics of the same layer. So this is innovation, and this is circular economy.
Right. I think Bhargavi and Dr. Vibha also wanted to come in. So quickly, if both of you can kind of make your points as well. Bhargavi, you want to go?
Yeah, so I just heard Mr. Pai say that somebody has to pay the price. Unfortunately, it's always the poor and the marginalized and the vulnerable. The most vulnerable are the ones who are paying the price. So I don't think that's the right way to attain the SDGs. There has to be a holistic way. There has to be equality when we are trying to address this. And the second thing is we need in any civilization, we need to have somebody to grow food and yes, somebody to write code. If everybody aspires to write code, we cannot be eating food, right? Unless, of course, writing code is going to generate food crops at some point of time. I guess that time is a little far away. But we need to think holistically, make sure everybody has a dignified livelihood is important. Thank you.
Right. Dr. Dhawan, I want you to come in, and I know Mr. Pai has a counter, but I want Dr. Dhawan to come in first.
Thank you so much. The point I want to make, yes, it's rightly said, it's really difficult to think life without plastic. We are so used to it. The problem is that people are not aware that most of us, I'll say, that it cannot be degraded and what are the after effects, and especially that it's now started entering the food chain. If you look at plastic in marine systems, the moment you eat fish, you are actually consuming plastic, and that concentration is going to go up. So reduce consumption, reuse, recycle, that goes without saying. But also we need to research on alternatives, this biodegradable plastic. And a small study has been done with the algal waste. So we are talking of biofuel on one hand, which you can get from the alga as one of the byproducts, and the volumes of de-oiled algal mass can actually be converted into plastic. It might be a little bit expensive, but at the end of the day, it is helping, because since it's an organic matter, it is helping even degradation of other material faster. So therefore, we need to popularize such technology. We need to invest in these technologies as well.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Devan. Dr. Dhawan. Mr. Pai,
Chandra, nobody is
every
saying.
job cannot be a coding job.
No, Chandra. I mean, every job cannot be a coding job, except that we don't want our children to go into farming and work the life of farmer. We want somebody to do it. That's a very selfish motive. So people have a choice of doing, and we must, like Dr. Sondhi said, we must make it worthwhile for people to take up certain jobs where they will make a good living. We can't exploit the farmer and say we want everything cheap and low cost. We are not willing to pay the price. That is a very wrong attitude. See, what you must do for development is nobody should get the short end of the stick. People must be adequately compensated. For example, you have to build a road. You need better logistics. You cannot say that you'll go by a bullock cart. That's not possible. You have to compensate the people adequately for the land. Nobody should be impoverished, and nobody should be asked to sacrifice. What she says is correct. Very often, the poor and the dispossessed are made to sacrifice because nobody cares for them. We must put policy into place for sustainable development, that if you do something which impacts society positively, the people who have to give up something are adequately compensated, rehabilitated in a very big way. And the cost must be borne by everybody in society. That has to be there. And all this, we must be very careful what we wish for ourselves and what we wish for others. And the last point I will say is, we must invest more in technology for recycling. And we must change our practices. How do we, each one of us, reduce our consumption, reduce waste, reduce energy consumption, live a much more sustainable life? If all the people on this panel were to reduce the consumption and reduce waste, we'll make a contribution. Let 10 crore people do that. It'll make a very big contribution. So like Mr. Sodhi said, it has to be a 5-pronged approach which has to be done. And the end result of all this should be a better world for everybody, not for us. Everybody should prosper.
Right. Andrew and Vineet, let me bring you here. Perhaps, Andrew, you can go first. In terms of the opportunities and challenges that you see ahead in terms of circularity of plastics, this is something that, that was highlighted by Vineet, by Mr. Pai, as well as Mrs. Sodhi. But what opportunities and challenges do you see here?
I think that in the next decade, there's going to be so much more momentum going towards the circular economy, driven by necessity. If you look at any of the scientific papers on the climate crisis, we fundamentally need to reduce our CO2 emissions as a globe by 7% each year until we reach net zero, to avoid unpredictable or potentially quite catastrophic climate destabilization. And in my opinion, the decision to transition away from fossil fuel-based plastics to using recycled plastics in particular is one of the lowest hanging fruits for industry to be able to lower their CO2 emissions. It does cost more. And when it comes to that transition towards the circular economy, I want to quickly talk about the 3 Bs. We hear a lot about the 3 Rs: reduce, reuse, recycle. Certainly reduce is the best solution to waste. Creating less waste is the best solution. But the 3 Bs of the circular economy don't get enough credit. So the one is the billions and billions of tons of plastic that have already been created, that are on the Earth's crust somewhere. The billions of people globally living without waste management service, and the billions of people globally living in and around the poverty line. So at Plastics for Change, our philosophy is how can we use plastic waste as a resource optimized for reducing poverty? And how can we build the transparency through the supply chain to ensure that those at the base are getting that predictable and fair income opportunity, because they're doing that hard work of actually picking up the plastic and getting it into the circular economy. So
Right.
that starts also by the demand. If you don't have the demand, if you don't have the consumer will, then the value of the material is nascent, and it's doomed to be downcycled or end up in a spot that we don't want. And I think that the movement around plastic is just starting to get a little bit of traction. I think now consumers are recognizing that everyone has microplastics in their body. It's personal now, and some consumers are starting to also vote with their wallet. They're choosing brands that are sharing their values and making that transition towards sustainability. And that trend, I think, is really
Right.
going to take off, and that's what gets me excited about the opportunities.
How serious are companies about ESG compliance? How do you really help your partners here?
Okay, so ESG compliance, if we think about from the time from in terms of the world that is coming now, it is not something which is good to have. It is a must to have. And it is not something that people will come and say, because I am environmentally conscious, I want to do ESG. Increasingly, ESG and scoring high on ESG is something that will help your business, because it will help you gain more customers. Your brand value will increase in variety of different global markets. It will soon become a requirement, because if you're selling into Europe, pretty quickly there'll be a carbon tax, there'll be a requirement for you to disclose your carbon footprint, all of those things. Yeah, and then finally, of course, at least I firmly believe that a big portion of ESG, which is environment and social, both of them, and governance, of course, but both environment and social are ultimately helping the company become more competitive. So let me share one example here, which is for Indian companies in particular, our typical cost of energy is highest when compared to the Western world. We do not have access to natural gas. We don't have access to cheap petrol and diesel. So typically our energy costs, which is our electricity from the grid or whatever the case may be, overall are higher than almost anywhere in the world, especially compared to China and the Western world. So it behoves us to look at energy efficiency projects, because they will ultimately help us become more competitive. And our own analysis has shown that while we are looking to cut down our carbon footprint by 50% by 2025 from an intensity perspective, from a carbon intensity perspective, our goal is to cut our carbon footprint by 50% by 2025. And many of the projects that we are doing have got paybacks that are 3 years or less, which means we are not only helping the environment, we are helping ourselves become competitive as well. Finally, I would say when you also companies start to reach out to the capital markets, to the equity shareholders, the debt shareholders, the debt holders of the company, all of them will give the company an additional either a higher equity stock price or potentially a lower debt or access to a wider debt pool based on the company's ESG. Yeah, so I think ESG is not just doing good for the world, it's ultimately, today especially, doing good for the company as well. Thermax has started integrated reporting. A couple of years, we started to report out our entire ESG balance sheet effectively, which is what is our carbon footprint, what is our water footprint, what is our social and governance standards, what are we doing. So we're starting to disclose all of that. And we firmly believe that what you disclose, what you measure is what you improve. Because what you can measure, then you can come back and say, okay, how do I control it? How do I change it? And you start to work that in a very, very active way. Third, I would say now that we have made these commitments, we have very active programs on reducing our own carbon footprint, reducing our own water usage. Even our CSR activities in many cases are aligned with doing well for the environment. And then finally, I would say as a company, as we look at our own future, we do realize that investment in renewable energy in particular, not just in terms of using renewable energy within our plants, but starting to think about things like electric boilers, bringing solar in a big way. I talked about fuel cells, a lot of such technologies which are game changing from an energy perspective are very important for Thermax also as we look to the future. So, in terms of everything that we do for ESG compliance, the way we take it seriously with our clients, the way we work with our customers in terms of the products and solutions that we develop, and then, as I said, the way we work with the society at large as individuals, our voluntary activities, the work that we do, all of it. Yeah, ESG is at the heart of everything. And I'll go back to the purpose of the company itself, which is conserving resources to preserving our future. We bring all of this to the heart of what makes Thermax.
Nice. Vinny, the three R's, three P's, that was an interesting analogy, Andrew. Thank you for that. Vinny, if I look at AB InBev's own target, you guys, I think you said that you want to have 100% of your product packaging from returnable or recycled material by 2025. So what's the progress there, particularly in Karnataka, since this is, how Karnataka has done well on sustainability?
Yeah, in India, Chandra, we've just started our journey. We must do a lot actually to achieve our circular packaging goal. But I believe we are in the right direction. We have the right plan. In India, our primary packaging material are basically the glass bottles and the cans, almost in the ratio of 70 to 30 in India. And both these materials are recyclable in nature, and glass bottles are returnable in India. And almost 98% of our glass bottles in our value chain are returnable. And new glass bottles are made from 30 to 35% of recycled content already. But one of the challenges we see is that a limited percentage of these bottles find their way back to our facilities, to our breweries, due to a large complexity in the value chain of bottle collection in India as well. And we are digging deep. Very similar to what Dr. Sodhi was mentioning, that there is a system in place. We also do have a system in place for bottle collection. In fact, we are trying to help create a better platform for that and bring in more transparency in the returnable bottle value. This is currently at a pilot scale, and we are learning some really good insights from it. Coming to aluminium is 100% recyclable and can be recycled almost indefinitely without the loss of quality or durability in particular, and it can be reused in a span of 2 months. In fact, in India, 95% of our aluminum cans are already in the recycle point. Coming to plastic, I think good discussions were happening. In fact, our plastic footprint in India is very less. In fact, whatever it is, we are working to eliminate the same. Our programs on shrink wrap removal of our cans in particular has reached a lot of advanced stages, and we're looking to eliminate that in times to come as well. And coming to
go on.
just on Karnataka, Karnataka has been, you asked about that. Karnataka has been one of our focus. We have our flagship brewery over here as well. We've initiated the pilot study that I was talking about, bringing transparency in the glass bottle has in fact been started in Karnataka. And we are understanding the returnability gaps that I talked about. And the state of Karnataka actively recognizes the need for reducing packaging waste, and the shrink wrap removal is in very, very advanced stages in our flagship brewery here in Karnataka. So we are making very, very good progress in the state of Karnataka in particular.
Right. I know our speakers are running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly get all your closing thoughts on how India can really evolve to a green and circular economy. So maybe we can start with Dr. Dhawan and then go to the other speakers.
Thank you so much. I have already made most of the points, and that is we also have to look to the alternative to plastic, which is more towards biodegradable. The other is also put a pricing and in a way something like plastic for the lifetime. So at least if it is expensive, we'll reuse it. We have to look at sustainability many years back. So basically, it was that people were using cloth bags. So that is again to be told to our next generation that come back to sustainability or reusing. And that has already been done at the school level, which is encouraging, and also take necessary steps for the kind of waste which will be generated in the future. So how will we recycle that, whether it is photovoltaics, whether it is plastic? So you collect and then recycle it. So that is essential. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Sodhi?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I fully agree. We have to come out with solutions, especially for packaging, where it is more sustainable and environment friendly. But I like to emphasize that when you want to see sustainability, you have to see that whole supply chain or the life cycle of the product is equally environmental sustainable. I may be saving, I may say my packaging is environment friendly, but the processing, packing, transportation back, cleaning that bottle and transportation of that bottle and disposal of that bottle, if that is more, not, I say not so much sustainable, the overall cost or overall impact will be more or less same. And second is whatever solution we want to find. Environment friendly means also affordable. We want to make it a mass movement. And Indian masses are lower middle class or lower class. They want affordable solution. So you can't say my packaging is sustainable, but I will charge you 40-50% premium. So let me tell you, it will reach only to 0.001% of Indian population.
That's a very important point. Sustainability that's also affordable, very important. Mr. Pai?
Chandra, the starting point is all of us in India and the world should understand that the old way of doing things cannot go on. We have to change. The first important thing is to take responsibility for our action and to change and to make sure that we consume less resources, we recycle, and we make sure that we live a better quality, sustainable life. Second is, as countries and societies, we must identify areas of waste and work to reduce that in a substantial way. Third, we must make investment either through startups or through government or individually to make sure that recycling, the circular economy comes into play. And lastly, we must make sure that we create a just society, that the impact of all this change does not fall upon people who are vulnerable, and make sure that they are taken care of. It has to start with all of us changing our lifestyle and changing the way we live, because once we do that, everything will follow. We are all leader society. We can make our corporate organization change. We can make everybody change. But let us all accept our responsibility.
Right. Vineet, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, just 2 points from my side. First, I think working with partners and startups to innovate. I think not everyone, we can't solve this problem individually. I think we need to work with very, very like-minded partners. We as an organization look out for a lot of innovation in startup that can commercialize new and innovative ideas that can drive circularity and see beyond the usual ways of working, right? And second very important point we feel has worked for us can definitely work for other businesses as well. That we make sustainability, not part of a business. We say it is our business, right? We integrate it as part of a strategy, whether it's branding, manufacturing, procurement, to create a value. And we believe this can be a long, sustainable, competitive advantage for our organization and for a lot of our players who want to get into this field as well. So thank you so much. It was a very, very educative discussion for me, and I look forward to working with a lot of you in the future as well.
Thank you very much, all of you, for giving us solutions, roadmap, and not just highlighting the problems. But on that note, we come to the end of the special dialogues that we have on sustainability. Hopefully, all these solutions will be implemented to make India a green and circular economy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Our namaste is circular.